First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of the UMAA convention for inviting me once again to address you all, and I would like to congratulate you on your 10th annual convention. It's great to see such an amazing turnout and once again, great conversations being had to advance the causes of American Muslims in the United States. The way my presentation is going to work is I have a short slideshow. I'm going to get about halfway through and then switch to a short video and then switch back to the slideshow to kind of explain some of what you've seen and then wrap up my presentation. So as you saw in your program guide and as you can see on the title slide, I'm going to be talking about what to do when the FBI comes knocking. So to give you a bit of an introduction, many of you may have heard about instances in the community in the American Muslim community where law enforcement has been interested in talking to individuals, everyone from MSA students, college students, up to leaders of organizations, as well as regular mothers and fathers in the community. They're doing this to learn information about people, about locations, about organizations, charities, both domestically and abroad, to learn about people's travel patterns, etc. And the reason for this is that since 9/11, the role of federal law enforcement, and when I say law enforcement, generally I'm talking about the FBI. The traditional role of the FBI was to fight crime. When we watch movies about, the 1960s and 1970s, obviously there were some very troubling aspects going on at that time, and I know Shahid will cover that. But the traditional role of the FBI was to fight crime, or at least that's its mandate. However, since 9/11, in order to try to be more prepared, what they thought they should do is to try to learn everything about everyone in the Muslim community. And this direction came from the FBI director down. So what's been happening is that FBI agents have been visiting individuals in the community to, as I mentioned, learn everything they can. And that includes, for example, after the Arab Spring broke out in December of 2010 and successively spread to different countries, we've heard reports of individuals being approached by the FBI and being asked, tell us about every Egyptian American Muslim that you know. We want all of their names, where they live, phone numbers, contact information. We just want to talk to them. We just want to know who they know in Egypt. We've heard the same thing about Libyans, Tunisians. And those questions have been asked for a number of years in the South Asian community as well. After the foiled Times Square bombing in New York a few years ago, a number of Pakistani community members were approached by the FBI asking, do you know this individual? What do you know? When did you meet him? Which mosque did you see him at? Et cetera, et cetera. Now, Muslim advocates, as well as other legal experts from other organizations, advise individuals that there's nothing wrong with talking to law enforcement, as long as you are doing so with the assistance and advice, at the advice of an attorney. And that is extremely important, and I'll talk about why. So, starting off, we all know that every American should report criminal activity if they are aware of it. That goes without saying. If you know of criminal activity, it is your duty to report it, not only as an American, but as a member of your community. However, some of these times in which law enforcement has been approaching individuals in the community has been what's called fishing expeditions, and I talked about this briefly in my presentation yesterday. Now, when we think of fishing, we know what our eventual goal is. We want to fish, right? We want something to walk home with, but we don't know where we're going to find that fish in the lake. We're going to use a different line, a different reel, a different hook, and we're going to do whatever we can to take that fish home. And that's a lot of time what law enforcement does. They don't know how to get the information they're looking for. They just know that they want to be able to walk home with information because that's what they show to their boss to say that I have this many sources that I've cultivated from the American Muslim community. We now know that there are about 45,000 unofficial sources that the FBI has in the American Muslim community. These are individuals that talk to law enforcement agents about who they know, which mosque they go to, how long people have been living in the community, who traveled from which country, where people live, where people have family abroad. Now, if I know you on a personal basis, and if we go way back, I might not have a problem with you discussing that with a mutual friend. But for you to discuss that with someone without my advice, without my consent, it feels like an invasion of privacy. And you wouldn't want that discussion to be taking place behind your back. And it's important to know that any details provided to law enforcement, to the FBI, can be the basis for an investigation. And that goes without saying, that's whether their notebook is open or closed, whether you meet them at your home or you meet them at a restaurant. Whether you're having chai with them, I love chai. If you invited me over, I would join you. But when they join you, even if that notebook is closed, they're still taking notes. And any information they glean from you can be used in a criminal investigation against you, your family, your loved ones, or the people that you're talking about. So what's the problem with all this? I mean, we want to be helpful. Sometimes we think that only if law enforcement knew us better, if we presented a better face of American Muslims, they would trust us more and we wouldn't have these issues. And I'm really sad to say that that's unfortunately not the case. Shahid can talk about this more, but we've known for years and years, the American Muslim community is not the first community to face this level of suspicion from the federal government. Whether it's African Americans, whether it's the Jewish American community, Irish Americans, the list goes on. Japanese Americans interned during World War II. We know that once that door is opened, they will continue coming back for information. If you talk to them once about a trip that you had to Karbala, they're going to want to know about your trip to Sham. They're going to want to know about your trip to Qom. They're going to want to know who came with you on those trips, when you went, where you went, who you met with. Those questions are not going to stop, unfortunately. And when you do that, you place yourself, your family at great risk. Because if you ever turn into a situation where you start to feel uncomfortable about some of these questions, they're going to bring things back. And they're going to say, well, on this date you told us that you left from the country on May 15th. Well, you actually left on May 17th. That's lying to a federal official. And like I mentioned, any statement that you use, even something as innocuous as the date that you left the country, that can be used against you in court. And they consider that to be lying to a federal official. You or I may just think, well, I didn't remember the exact travel date. That was 2 years ago. But they consider that to be lying to a federal official. And surprisingly, since 9/11, can you imagine what the most prosecuted federal crime is by the Department of Justice? It's not terrorism, it's not money fraud, it's not even what's going on Wall Street. It's lying to a federal official. That is the most prosecuted crime since 9/11. And that is something, as I mentioned, as benign, as innocent as forgetting the dates that you traveled. In one recent case, for example, individuals were actually up to the point of deported based on their conversations with the FBI, not for anything that they had to do with the investigation that they were carrying on, but rather because in the course of answering their questions, they accidentally lied to a federal official. So these are some recent cases. You may have seen headlines from time to time. FBI agents have been approaching community members everywhere from Southern California to Florida to here in the Maryland, DC area. In fact, after my presentation yesterday, I was approached by a community leader here at this convention and told, Muhammad, I haven't talked to anyone about this. I haven't talked to my local Muslim community. I haven't even talked to other people that I know in law enforcement. But I was approached by the FBI, and they wanted to know questions from me. And I answered a few of their questions, but luckily that brother told me that at some point he did engage an attorney. And that's the right thing to do. This is happening in our communities, brothers and sisters. We can't put our heads in the sand. We can't think that this is only happening to people from Egypt or to our Sunni brothers or to people from certain countries. It's happening in our community, and we should be open and willing to talk about it. If not with each other, then at least with individuals and organizations such as our own. So what's the solution? Now, you may think that we have nothing to hide. I'll talk to them once, I'll answer a few of their questions, and I'm sure they'll go away. But even answering a few of those questions can very quickly put you in hot water. The solution is to seek the advice of an attorney before you speak with law enforcement. Azmat, actually, if at this point we can switch to that video, I want to show you very quick what this can look like. Thank you. So as you can see, it's very easy to get yourself into hot water very quickly. And at the same time, it's extremely easy, well, not easy, but it can be quick and painless to really assert your rights, to know what you should do. And sometimes that requires practice, and sometimes it requires knowing a little bit more, watching, for example, that video a couple times, and talking to people, how would you handle this situation? And those are conversations that we'd love to have. But I want to review those 3 points very quickly. The first is always talk to an attorney before talking to law enforcement. I've talked to a lot of community leaders, and unfortunately we've seen a lot of community leaders end up in the news because they thought they could be smarter than law enforcement. They thought they could be smarter than the advice that attorneys who have worked in this field for decades, they thought they could beat that advice. And I'm really sorry to say that even myself as an attorney, I don't think I'm smart enough to handle a situation. I don't think I'm smart enough to start answering those questions and not end up in hot water. And I know that I would contact an attorney myself if I were in that situation. Now remember, there's no legal obligation to talk to law enforcement. They may show up at your home and say, we have an urgent situation, we need you right away, you're gonna get in trouble if you don't answer questions. That's not the case. You are under no legal obligation to talk to law enforcement if you do not want to without an attorney. That cannot be used against you. Some of us may think that, well, I have nothing to hide and I'm just going to get myself in trouble. Might as well answer the questions, they're going to go on their way. They cannot use it against you if you choose not to talk to them without an attorney. And as they mentioned in the video, law enforcement officials can actually lie to you. They have that, as part of FBI domestic intelligence operating guidelines, they can actually lie to you. They can say that, well, such and such alim in the community recommended that I talk to you. Your good friend recommended that I come and see you. There's an urgent situation developing that we need you to answer questions for right away. They can tell you these lies in order to get you to talk to them. They can even promise immigration benefits. That actually happened in a very prominent case in Iowa, where an individual chose to answer questions for the FBI for a number of years, and now he finds himself in deportation proceedings because their promise never came through. They lied to him. The second step, and as you saw in the video, do not allow them into your home without a search warrant. You wouldn't allow just any stranger off the street to come into your home, to see your family, to see your personal belongings, so why should you do so with someone, in this case, again, that you don't know? Try to step outside. Politely ask them if they want to enter your home, ask them if they have a search warrant. And if they don't have one, then, ask them for their business cards and tell them that your attorney will contact them. If they do have a search warrant, take a look at it. See what it says, see what it allows them to take from your home, but know that you are still under no obligation to answer their questions. They can come in and remove items, but you still do not have to talk to them without an attorney. And the third thing is, we saw this in the video, you have rights. We all have rights. We have rights to the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the freedom to be free from government intrusion. That means that we should feel some sense of security and privacy in our own homes and in our lives. The freedom to express your opinions is an American value, and you should be free to express yourself. If you want your attorney, tell them you want your attorney. Don't be shy about it. You've earned it. This is my last slide. So what can you do going forward? First thing is to be informed. Just outside the hall, I have some printed materials. I have some cards, Talk to my lawyer. It tells you exactly what you need to do. Sign up for our e-newsletter. Ours, BORDC's, Shahid's organization, other groups that are out there doing important work on these issues, sign up for our e-newsletters list and know when things develop, when things change, know what you need to do to be informed. The second thing is to protect your friends, your family, and your community. Talk to people. If you have children, or if you have your parents, or you live with your siblings, or even roommates, talk to them and know what you will all do when FBI comes knocking on your door. Know that you're going to be prepared in that situation. As you saw in the video, it was very important that the mother, knew to keep the door closed as she was grabbing her son to come and talk to those agents. She didn't let them inside the home. And the third, the last, the most important thing is to contact an attorney if the FBI contacts you. You can contact Muslim advocates. There are a number of other organizations that provide similar work. You can contact your state bar association. And the beautiful thing is, and I've talked to a number of different criminal defense attorneys, many of us think that, well, I can't afford an attorney. This is just going to end up to be an expensive and problematic situation. Well, most criminal defense attorneys will actually represent you for free for that first interview with the FBI. And most times, I would say a majority, Shahid, correct me if I'm wrong, most times they don't call you back. Most times they are just on a fishing expedition. They may meet with you once with an attorney, and that's it. It's over. And that interview is free of charge. So just keep these in mind. I'm around during the convention, and I know we're going to have Q&A. Love to get people's thoughts, questions, and we want to make sure that our community is secure and protected and knows our rights. Thank you.